the last presentation today is by our own Enrique and Tereza, talking about how we use the design system within ViriCiti. Now, Enrique has been with us a couple of years. He's the lead of the front-enders. He's a real, how do you say that, lover of the front end. We couldn't get him actually to do something else. And he basically is leading everybody and sets up meetings with front-enders to try to push them to use new technologies. And he's going to talk a little bit about the front end. And Tereza is our rising star on the design front. And she actually started about a year ago with us, and she's clearly also very much in love with her field. So I'm hoping that the two of you can tell them a little bit more about what we do here. Go ahead.
Thanks, Robert. Before we dive into the design system and the tooling itself, I would like to actually explain why there was a need for the design system in the first place. But for that, I need to take you 2 years ago. It was the year 2019, and the company didn't have any designers and only 2 front-end developers. What it meant was that actually the front-end developers didn't have any design guidelines. They didn't have any designs for reference. They worked in global styles, and when they needed to create a component, it would be either from scratch or they used some library to work with. What it also meant was that not always all components were reusable, and when they needed to change certain components, they needed to change it in all environments separately, which was not really scalable. In terms of cooperation or collaboration between the team, there were no structural updates yet. It was not necessary, but because the team was only 2 front-end developers, but when the team started to get bigger, it obviously started to be more challenging to keep everyone updated and aligned. This is maybe picturing you a little bit what the situation was 2 years ago and why a design system was needed. Now we have a design system, and it basically is there with one objective, to provide consistent user experience. It does so by allowing us to work in a scalable manner, in modular manner, and it also facilitates the collaboration between various teams and various disciplines. I think we can go next. So maybe Robert already mentioned that we have several products, but we intend to have only one design system for it, to basically want to rule them all. We have atomic design. So I think it was already mentioned by Jasper. Basically, we follow Brett Frost methodology, where we split our components into atoms, molecules, organisms, templates, and pages. It's still very much work in progress. So our design system is only 1 year old, so it's like our baby. It's really infant stage right now. It's not ideal yet. There's still a lot of work to do, but there's also work that has been done, and it's growing and it's getting better. But probably it will never be, of course, done because toolings change, processes change. So maybe it's also good to mention, because sometimes I hear companies when they have meetups saying, our design system team. Well, our design system team is basically 7 people at the moment. It's 2 designers and 5 front-end developers. I would like to mention though that this is not our sole, only job. We are working on sprints in different various teams, and this is something that we do simultaneously next to our normal tasks or tasks that we have in the sprint. So it's a bit challenging, but we are trying our best. I also always wondered when I was at the meetup somewhere else so how do you guys communicate? How do you align yourselves? And that's why I put this slide in there, to kind of help you out or shine a light a bit on how we do it. So we daily communicate in our Slack channel. We have a dedicated Slack channel called Frontend. And there we basically talk about daily tasks or some smaller things or like questions that can be quickly answered. We fill it in there. We do also hold ad hoc reviews. It can be either code or design. It can be 1-to-1, 2-to-1. Let's say 2 designers with 1 front-end developer, or 2 designers with 4 front-end developers. It really depends on the tasks that we have to do. We also have Atomic Weekly. So every Thursday, we sit together at a round table to think about bigger things. Usually it's bigger things like structure, planning, how to align. So this is still a lot work in progress. So we are still figuring a lot of things out together, and we are using those weekly meetings for those bigger things. But sometimes, like for example, today we got stuck on a component and we went discuss it the whole hour, like how to name it or how to figure out. I think that Jasper was mentioning the naming is a teamwork. I think that today was a good example of that case. Um, we are using Asana. So Asana is like sort of like a manager of tasks. I mean, you probably know Trello or Jira. So this is our management system, and there we actually track the progress on certain tasks. Usually it goes like that. If a designer has an update or something needs to be picked up, he puts it in the Asana. We have it organized also in the atomic way. And then we assign it to a frontender, and then frontender, for example, uh, um, builds it or needs a review, then he assigns it back to us. And this is a way where we can see what the progress on certain components is. And recently we held also Atomic Fix-It. So as I mentioned, we work on sprints, so we don't have dedicated time to work only on design system. And we tried out a 2-week sprint only on Atomic to kind of catch up and put some legacy that we had away and really polish things up to not have so much debt. Yeah, and I think that worked really well. I think being focused only on Atomic made our shared understanding better, and we aligned on a lot of things that I think it would be hard to do during our normal sprint. Yeah, and Enrique will tell you maybe a little bit more about the collaboration right now.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm gonna be talking about collaboration. This is more or less what our design system looks like. Well, a design system is more or less, it's not a deliverable, but it's a set of deliverables. It will change over time with the tools, the technologies, the products, and it consists of 2 main elements, non-tangible and tangible components. An example of non-tangible is, for instance, the beliefs, the vision, the objectives, which you can see more or less on the upper part of the image, and the tangible components like designers, developers, documentation, all that you can see on the bottom part. How we solve this, the tooling that we use, we're going to be talking about that in the next slides, and Teresa is going to be talking about design tooling.
The cliffhanger. Okay, so the tooling for the designers that we currently use with BART, we are using Sketch at the moment. So when I came to the company, we were using Sketch, and we decided to keep it. That's for the simple reason it just is sufficient for our needs at the moment. It doesn't say that we won't switch somewhere in the future if some other program like Figma or something has a feature that we really think like, oh yeah, this would make our life easier, then we would definitely consider switching. But I think it would be a lot of work, so we are trying to keep up with Sketch. In Sketch, we are doing basically wireframes. We are building prototypes in there. So when we do usability testing with users, we create prototypes in there. And of course, there are also the high fidelity designs that we use for developers for handoff or for some different purposes like sales or marketing. Now, before Abstract, I don't know, maybe, I think you guys are familiar with Abstract. It's basically like a versioning tool for designers, something like GitHub for developers. Abstract is for designers. Before Abstract, we were using Zeppelin, but it missed the versioning feature. So now we are using Abstract. It's a very nice tool. So basically, we have one source of truth for designs. It's really closely working with Sketch. So every day we basically work in Abstract. And we have a master file, and in the master file, that's like basically the source of truth for all designers or for any developer. And when we, for example, want to create something new, we create a new branch, we collaborate on it with BART, and then we have collections. So the collection tool in Abstract we are using for reviews. So in branches, we have collections to be reviewed. And once this is all agreed upon by stakeholders like product management or developers, we have a green light and we can merge it to the master, and there it becomes the source of truth for the developers. So yeah, so feedback and handoff, it's all handled by Abstract. And guidelines and documentation we have on Confluence. Simple reason because the company is using Confluence for other documentations, and it's basically also work in progress. I must say this is the the one that we need to catch up the most with. But yeah, Confluence is the one that developers look for guidelines as well, or other stakeholders. And Enrique will tell you something more about the front-end tooling.
Indeed. So I'm going to be talking about front-end tooling. First of all, we use Storybook and Chromatic. Chromatic is basically just like a wrapper on top of Storybook. We use it alongside Atomic Design. So as Jasper mentioned, also Teresa, we base our library, our atomic components into atoms, molecules, and organisms. We adopted Storybook because it's really nice. It gives you a really nice idea about how you can test the components in an isolated way. You can also implement the unit test. You can also integrate your unit test on your Storybook, so you can see all the results. Click. Bit. We also adopted Bit recently. The use case that we had is that we generated the bundle, the JavaScript bundle with all our components there. So we only had one version, but we had like, let's say 50 components. So what we thought is, why don't we use a tool that allows us to deploy the components individually? So we found Bit. It's really nice. We are still experimenting a lot because it's, they say that is the successor of Git. So I don't know if we will replace it, but we're still working at the same time with Bit and Git. And GitLab, of course, we still trigger the pipeline when we need to release some the CSS. We have some white labeling theming going on. And of course, we base Jasper use Tailwind. We still use Bootstrap. It solves the use case that we have. Plus, we extended it with custom rules, and we use Rollup.js for it. So yeah, that's the tooling that we use. This is how Abstract looks like. As you can see on the sidebar, you can see your projects. You can see the collections. As Teresa mentioned, they work with branches, master branches, same as Git, and you can see the file. So we name it in atoms, molecules, and organisms. So it's one-to-one relation with Storybook. This is how a Storybook looks like. You can write like many stories. You can see, for instance, the button example. You have one button, and then you have different stories. So you have all the variations you can have for your components. And this is how Chromatic looks like. So Chromatic solves the problem that the designers will give you feedback before you ship something to production, right? So you develop something locally, you push it to Chromatic, and then you instantly receive feedback from the designers. They can deny. You can see on the top right part of the screen of the screenshot. They can deny. They can accept the component. They can give you feedback, and you can also navigate through versions, which is really nice because you might have 100 versions, so you can do sort of A/B testing, let's say, which is really useful for both developers and designers. Challenges. Well, we had a lot of challenges the last year. First one was to work consistently. You have a lot of, well, you need the standards, you need rules to apply to the team. It's not easy, especially if you have like multiple people. Documentation, it's a pain in the ass, I know. Both functional and technical documentation is hard to write, it's hard to maintain, and yeah, but we have to do it. I think one of the most challenging process that I found in the last year was to make it a habit to work on this side project, because this is not a main product. This is a side project that will support your main products, right? It's hard to incorporate this work into your main products in your company, right? And synchronize it. So keep your client applications synchronized. Update them with your latest version of the design system. Yeah. So I'm going to be presenting now a normal workflow that we will follow at ViriCiti. As Teresa mentioned, Asana is the management tool that we use. Once we have the task, we have planned it into our sprint. Well, the designers will take it, will design something, will deliver some designs. Then it comes to us. Then it comes to the developers to develop it locally. We would develop the unit tests, the component, the stories, the whole shebang. And then before we ship it to production, we would push it to Chromatic. They need to test it. The designers need to test it. Yeah, they need to approve it or not. If they don't approve it, if they reject it, then it comes back to us, and we need to develop again. If they approve it, then we need to ship the components. We need to deploy them together with the CSS, and then hope for everything to work properly. There is a special emoji there because I emphasize that we need a strong collaboration with the designers there. This is extremely crucial for us, because if that misses, then we have a problem, of course, and they will get angry at us. Yeah, now we're gonna show something live. We're gonna show the applications live. This is abstract. As I explained before, yeah, we have all the branches. We have the master branch, which is where we look at basically. We have the buttons, for instance. This is the example that we are going to take. We have atoms, molecules, and organisms, and we also have styles. We have like secondary elements like colors, branding, typography, etc., etc. Maybe we can check. Yeah, well, these are the buttons. Maybe we can check primary or secondary. These are all the variations that we have for one type of the atoms, the buttons. Yeah, all the atoms basically. Yeah. So basically, the objective for us is to make the same thing on Storybook. So there is one-to-one relation between abstract and Storybook. Yeah, you see, you can inspect the elements. This is all the specifications that designers give us, with all the colors, all the sizes, all the text, buttons, all the specifications. We can give them feedback as well here in this application. Now we can show the Storybook, and this is pretty much a Storybook. Takes a lot of time, but we work with add-ons, which we don't see now. I don't know why. We should see something here on top of it. Oh, okay, whatever. We use add-ons. I should mention controls, Storybook controls. It's really nice. They it allows you to inject the props dynamically, so you know how the components behave. But we also have, like as Jasper mentioned, accessibility, so you can actually check all the accessibility tests that they run, responsiveness, color scheme, so etc., etc. You have lots of them, but we found like 5 or 6, I think we use now. And this is Chromatic. This is Chromatic. So if we come back, we adopted it recently. As I said, we only have like 5 builds, but you can see all the list of the components that they need to be reviewed by the designers. they have to go individually one by one. Sorry for that. But they can go to one, for instance, at the button. So this is really nice. They just compare the snapshots that we generate, and they actually compare it in an interactive way. So we had like two, even the text changed, I think, but we changed the icons, and then you can see in the green, there's like a green shadow there that indicates that we have changed that element, and they can leave some comments, which is really useful for the developers. You can see on the bottom left part the baseline history, so you can actually navigate through the builds. You can navigate through the versions of the same component. And yeah, on the top right part, as I said, they can deny it or approve, which is what we need basically to, as a green light. Yeah. So this is really nice as well. You can actually go to a specific storybook of a specific version. So this is the new one. This is the latest storybook. You can also go to the build number 1, which was the very first build of Storybook, and you can pretty much do A/B testing there. You can compare how it behaves, how it looks like, and then receive feedback from the designers. Oh yeah, so yeah, exactly. So now you can see it. So this what I was talking about, the add-ons. So Abstract, this is a link directly to Abstract. So for the front-enders, if they want to check the designs, you can just click there, and then it will transport you to Abstract. You can come back. Yes, so you can go to controls. Yeah, we had that. You have README. Can you click on test? Yes. So test, we have like 26 tests for the button. So we test pretty much everything, and you can see the result there. We use Jest for it as a JavaScript framework for testing. And actions, if you can click on the button, then you see how it behaves. Can you click on the button? Yes. So it returns something. So you can also test the behavior. And I think that's pretty much it.